Web3 sales conference with our panel. So thank you, Belma, and the rest of the team for giving us this privilege. I'll start with Amber. As Hiam already mentioned in the intro, you're working as a trader for years in JP Morgan Chase, and we've all seen in the movies and read in the articles about the toxic masculinity of the trading floor. Was this a factor in you deciding to start your accelerator and your fund, or was the motivation something other?
Absolutely. All right. Absolutely not. But first, I want to say thank you, Croatia, for the beautiful invitation. So glad to see such a vibrant crypto community and a very, very talented engineering community that also is talented at singing. And thank you for Led Zeppelin in the morning. That's always good to set up the mood. In what I've learned in banking, basically, is the power of no. So women have a tendency of being agreeable. We're taught to say thank you, please, be like nice. And one of the most important things I've learned 3 years into the job is to say no. And why the power of no is important? Because not only people will respect you more once you have limit, but at the same time, it really, really empowers you as a person. But the idea of the 200 billion club actually started when I quit JP Morgan to start a company with my two co-founders, male two co-founders, and we wanted to raise, well, our seed round, and we wanted to raise 20 million because we were starting a decentralized programmable bank. And I found it very, very complicated to raise, even though I have a stellar pedigree. So once we launched our token in November 2020, things were going very well. We ended up raising, et cetera, I wanted to focus on a social impact project. And because I was very frustrated in my fundraising process, we went, me and my partner, Bridget Greenwood, on roughly a 3-month journey. And we started speaking with investors, founders, academic, to really try to understand why women don't get as much funding as men. And we were able to highlight 2 main pain points. The first one is the network. So the data would show you 82% of all VC-funded startups come through a warm introduction. If you have a warm introduction, you have 13 times more chances of reaching the investment committee, which is the last stage of the investment decision. But women have networks that are smaller than men. Hence, the probability of getting a warm introduction is lower. Hence, the probability of getting funded is lower. So how did we solve that problem? Is by building this really large network of VCs around us. We currently have over 200 VC partners in order for us to become this warm introduction to female founders with VCs. Now, the second pain point is much more interesting and much more psychological, and it has to do with the pitch. And on this, I'm just going to mention 2 reports that are very interesting and that has driven the foundation, I would say, of the accelerator program. The first one was in the Harvard Business Review, and it showed that women are asked preventive questions and men are asked promotive questions. So what's a preventive question? It's a question that puts you on the defensive. And a promotive question is a question that talks about the opportunities of the business. And funny enough, I'm an angel investor. After speaking with the academic that wrote the paper, I noticed that I am biased myself. Because when I face a certain type of woman that doesn't sound like me, I start asking like these very annoying question of, how did you calculate your market size? How did you do? Are you sure about this? It's true. But now why is this relevant? It's relevant because when you're asked a preventive question, you raise 5 times less than when you're asked a promotive question. Now the silver lining here is, if you're able to pick up on these preventive questions, answer them in a promotive way, this unconscious bias disappears and you raise the same amount as men. Now, the other piece of research that I quite like is called Don't Pitch Like a Girl. I love the title. And that one is quite interesting because it shows the bias is not against women per se. The bias is against feminine behaviors during the pitching process. And I will give you some examples that we have seen in our first cohort. You will be surprised how women, remember we're saying women are agreeable, how women don't like to talk about how amazing they are. Most of them start talking about how amazing their co-founders are. They diminish the accomplishment that they have made. We had an exercise, because during the first cohort, I was quite frustrated, because I was like, okay, tell me about you. Like, what did you do? Like, I don't know who you are. And then we played a game where the woman that bragged the most about her achievement will win a bottle of champagne. And what did we learn? We learned that one of them was head of product at Nokia and released or launched Nokia Map in 75 countries. One of them managed previously 350 people with 60 million budget. One of them co-invented tripartite repo. And I was like, ladies, if I'm an investor, if you don't tell me this, I am not going to trust you with my money at all. So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the language that women use. Again, it's a very agreeable, diminishing language. When a man is 50% sure, he will tell you, I know, I can, I will. When a woman is 99% sure, she will tell you, I hope, I think, I believe. So now put yourself in the seat of the investor. When an investor hears, I can, I will, versus I believe, I think, who is he going to pick, right? So that's the story of the accelerator. We've been very successful actually launching the program, where 2 cohorts in, 75% of our graduates end up raising from our partners, on average $1.7 million. So it's a proof that things work.
Thanks, Amber. You just from the get-go opened, I think, some of the most really important questions, and I would like to get some insight from the other side, from the startup side. So, Carla, you've been this very interesting position that you co-founded the startup with your brother. You knew the guy for the whole of your life, and now you've been in all kinds of situations, and now you're in a situation that you're basically on par with him when raising and when getting in situations that Amber just described. So can you give it the impression from the other side? How do you feel this situation that Amber described?
Thank you, Nikola, and thank you, Amber. Really, I was listening carefully what you were saying, and yeah. So we have a startup, Getpack. It's carpooling for packages, and actually, I had a similar situation as you mentioned. So I will just give one example, just to make it more vivid. When I was Googling, actually, I was part of a similar table few months ago, and the statistics are not in favor of women. As you said, we raised less, but when we say we raised less, we raised only 2% of all VC capital, and actually, I Googled it yesterday, in Europe is even 1%. So 1% of all VC money is given to women co-founders in startup, although we are 30 to 40%, about 30% of startups are owned by women. So this is not good. Also, not good number is that less than 10% of women VC partners are women. In Croatia, I think we only have one person women from, I think, Feel Good Capital. So this is not good. But what you said, Amber, we are here we have this positive note, and also I don't think it's like a male conspiracy. It's something that is, let's say, deep in our culture. As you said, you are asking same questions to women often. So we need to change something. And yeah, I have this thing of this, as you said, preventative question, or let's say negative question. And I have this tendency to switch it. I didn't know even that I'm doing it, but I've been working in sales for 20 years. So I have this it's part of my, let's say, business knowledge. It's what I'm doing. But I can tell you what is happening to me. I've been pitching, you know, and when you have pitch, then you have jury members, and then they start asking questions. And I always have this preventative question. I used to it's not a problem. Even I think it should be asked to everyone. I think they are good questions. But at one point, a guy asked me, okay, but what if someone would deliver a bomb via your startup? And you know, I was thinking, okay, this guy just bombarded my whole pitch, and everyone heard in the room. And then, you know, I was thinking, why would someone deliver a bomb with application when you leave all your data, when the person who is driving actually knows where you're living? I mean, no one is delivering a bomb in that way. I mean, and then what I did, it was really a professional tip. Don't mention serial killers on your pitch. But I was watching Netflix, you know, Unibomber. Just like a few weeks ago. And it was a guy who was actually delivering bomb via post, not via startup like public post, bomb to universities. And then I start, you know, like answering him, yeah, but you know, even a Unibomber send bombs via public post, not via, you know, startup or taxi or whatever. But it was like really bad. It's just, I mean, so professional tip: don't mention serial killers on your pitch. But it's just maybe one example of. I don't think that owner of BlaBlaCar was asked what if someone would be killed in your startup, of owner of Airbnb, what if someone would be like rape or whatever in your, you know. So it's the thing is that it was extreme question, but I could you know, I lost it, you know, because after that you cannot pitch anymore. And no, I couldn't believe it, really. I couldn't believe it. It was just too much. But yeah, it's in addition to your intro.
So we'll have an open mic at the end of this panel. Somewhere on the screen there's on the screen there's a QR code. You can scan it and you can submit your questions through it. So and I'll be asking them in the end of the panel. So Hajdi, you come from media and marketing business. You were in an agency for quite some time, and now you're quite a visible founder in the AI industry. But we had a situation like a month ago, one of the first times that that national television was tackling the topic of AI, and they had an all-male panel in the prime time. So does this happen a lot? Do you feel the difference in the visibility of you? And there are some great AI women in Croatian community. Do you and your colleagues feel the difference, or would you say that everything's okay?
I wouldn't say that it's okay. There's always room for improvement, if I may add. It has changed throughout time, so I do see a difference in the past 5 years, let's say. So 5 years ago, very often there were conferences, tech conferences, AI conferences, where I would be the only female speaker and presenter, and that was a little bit like surprising and frustrating. So very often I would go after the organizers, like, couldn't you invite more women? But there was one thing that very often came up, actually two things. So first one was being on top of the mind. So, you know, like very often it's not that someone doesn't invite women on purpose, but, you know, when you think of a topic that you want to cover, if you're not putting a conscious effort in making the panel diverse, then, you know, you tend to invite the first people that come to your mind. So if you're not present, if you're not talking, if you're not establishing your authority, and that has to happen from the beginning. So what happens a lot with women in tech or founders and co-founders of startups is that they tend to wait. They tend to be very shy and modest, as Amber said. They don't want to promote themselves. Or they say, oh, we need to first fundraise and then we'll put a lot of effort in marketing and visibility and everything. You cannot do that. So you have to be present, you have to be there, use the social media, use it because it's for free. Establish your credibility and your authority, and you will be, as a female, also on top of mind when a certain topic arises. The second part, what I got was also very often that they would invite women, but they would say no. And that also is something that's a little beef I have with women, is that, again, probably coming from lack of confidence, maybe, or shyness, again, modesty, not wanting to be in the public, in front of the, in the spotlight. So very often they wouldn't even be able to get female speakers to come to the conferences and present. Luckily, as I said, that has changed a little bit, although I still do hear like comments like that. Very often, I have to admit, from journalists, that they would like to invite women to talk about what they do, but very often it's very difficult for them to find those that are willing to come. So as for the media, it really depends which media. That will be now a little bit not diplomatic, but majority of it is really okay. They really do ping us a lot. And yes, that was a really a moment with that all-male panel that kind of caused a little bit of an uproar, because especially in Croatia, we're with a community of AI, so with Croatian AI Association, there's a number of women who are involved there, who do have public profiles, who are present, and still they were not invited. So there is a beef with that specific TV station, but okay. The others are much better, I have to admit. So what I really want to say here is that we do need to work also on ourselves, try to get the confidence. And I tend to say yes to a lot of invitations to speak. And even though I dread it every time, I have to admit I still don't like public speaking. It's like panels now, I'm fine with it. I can be comfortable, but when I have to stand on my own and give a presentation, it's still scary as hell. But I do it to put myself as well out of the comfort zone so I can grow, so I can get the confidence, so that when the time comes for me to do, for example, a pitch in front of investors, I have a background, I have the credibility that's established, that I have the authority, and it does give you a certain advantage compared to if I didn't have it. But I think we're gonna discuss that a bit later.
Sure. Thank you, Hajdi, for this unique insight. Danijela, you're also in a unique position. You used to work in a law firm that's headed by 5 all-male partners, and then you founded a law office with 2 of your colleagues. So you basically have 2 female co-founders. First, how often is that in Croatia? Are you the only one? And do you see the difference, before working in the all-male partner office and now having all-female partner office?
Okay, many questions and topics. Well, when I listen to you from tech industry or VC funds, I have the impression that legal environment is easier on women because there are really many women lawyers, and there are many individual law firms run by women. And there are also women partners in law firms where there are mostly male partners, but then every now and then there is an extra female partner to that. And there are also some areas of law which are dominated by women, not surprisingly, family law and similar areas of law. But our law firm practices business law, corporate law. So we work for corporations, tech companies, banks, and so on. And in this world, I think it is mostly dominated by men. And I think in Croatia, I think we are the only law firm which is founded and managed by 3 female partners. We also have a 4th partner who is also a woman, our younger colleague, and we, of course, we employ men. We are not, let's say, sexist in the other direction. I know that there is a similar firm in Slovenia. So there is one But I just, this is not to say that there are not many very successful women lawyers, but this is quite unique for Croatia, and I would also say for Western Europe as well. Yeah. When it comes to way of work, you're right. I used to work in a more masculine environment by male partners, led by male partners. Now we are female partners, and to be honest, I didn't change much the way I work, and I think my partners didn't either. I think we are simply not so focused on this topic. We are not focused on male, female. We are trying not to be intimidated by this frustrated, grow complexes because of it. We are just trying to be professional and do our work. And I don't think we changed our behavior or way of work. And this is maybe very helpful, actually, not to have this topic in focus all the time and think, oh, we are women. This is why this doesn't function. Or what I also noticed from other speakers is, again, that we are expecting the women to change behavior. You should be different at pitches and do it like men do. This is what I would personally like to change. Why can't we just, I understand we need some confidence boost. That's fine, we definitely do. Maybe it's depending also on our personal stories, environments where we come from, what we hear, what they teach us. But also, why wouldn't we be a bit skeptical, maybe even a bit, I mean, of course it's important to be confident, but it's also good to be realistic. It's also good to have doubts, to be detailed, to be precise. I mean, I would like to see an environment where that is also okay, where that is also positive, you know? Not that we just change our behavior and start acting like men would do on certain occasions. I can maybe, as a last thought, I can maybe imagine situations where we maybe did not win a client because we were female lawyers, especially where you have a very masculine corporate client, or maybe he has a very tough opponent, so he maybe thinks, oh, a guy would do this job better, you know, he would be a better lawyer for me against this tough opponent on the other side. So I'm sure that at some point when a client selected the lawyer, maybe the female factor was negative. But I also have an example where openly a woman manager of a company told us at the meeting where we were, I would say, pitching or selling our service. She said, I like this feminine energy that you have, and I feel really good that I will be also working with women. So I think we should, you know, stay optimistic and confident, and maybe that's also helpful.
Sure. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So, Amber and Carla, you were previously, mentioning your experiences from both sides of the pitching table, how questions are asked, and how there's really a big difference. So, Amber, do you see a difference in basically performance of your program? Does excluding male and overrepresented groups from your founding pool impact your basically profitability in a positive or a negative manner?
So we're not I don't like the term excluding. We don't exclude. What we want to have is diverse teams. Now, I'm not doing diverse teams because I like diversity per se. I'm doing diverse teams because data shows you diverse team generate 35% higher EBIT than non-diverse team. Diverse team generate 1.5 times extra cash flow per employee than non-diverse team. So diverse teams are good for business, not just good for ethics or whatever it is. But what I want to do now, we barely mentioned unconscious bias. And what I want to say is, a lot of men, most men, are pro-women. Yes, they want to see more women in the space. They encourage their daughters to be engineers and scientists and doctors and whatever it is. But unconscious bias is very, very insidious. And I'm going to ask the audience a question. When the founder of Alice in Blockchain was speaking, there was the gentleman next to her. Did you notice something that lightened your brain up? Did anyone notice something he said that lightened your brain up? And he is pro-woman, huh? Go ahead. Exactly. So he is pro-woman, and he said, Guys are good at technical, but not good at communication or organization. And it is unconscious, but this is where we should start the change in the way we think and visualize things, and most importantly, in the word we use. Because if he tells his daughter, if his daughter is listening to him, and he's saying guys are good at technical stuff, meaning women are not good at technical stuff, it's going to create it's a sort of vicious cycle in her own brain, thinking that, she can't be good at technical stuff. So be careful with language.
Thank you, Amber. So I think you opened a really important question, and that's a question of responsibility. So if we want to have a more inclusive and diverse tech community, whose responsibility it is to act? Of course, first and foremost, it's the responsibility of the individual, every one of us. That's an obvious one. Also, NGOs like Alice in Blockchains, we basically need them to push the narrative, to organize events like this one. Thank you, girls. But apart from that, is there any other type of organization? Is there a responsibility of the government? I mean, in Croatia, for instance, we have this cap on electoral lists. 40% of electoral lists have to be female. Also, we pay tax, companies pay tax if they don't employ disabled persons. Should this be expanded, or you think that there's no role for government in tackling this issue? Or is there any other organization that should be, pushed into helping?
I'm just going to answer this very quickly because I don't want to take the time of my colleagues. But I do believe in affirmative action. And the only example I will give you, in the United States, if there was not affirmative action for the black community would have never ever gotten into college. You would have never had a black American middle class, and you would never have had Barack Obama. So yes, affirmative action is important, and yes, I understand it hurts the middle class Eurocentric male, but in the end, you need to think about longer-term vision of the country, where the country is going, rather than individual cases.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when you mention, Nikola, like we have these quotas in the politics system, actually we do. I think it's like the political list, there should be like 40% of women on it. I mean, it's not obligatory, but like if you don't do it, then you pay like 3,000 euros fee or something. And I mean, it's not a perfect system because political parties tends to put women on the bottom side of the list. And the upper side of the list actually enters the parliament, but it made some progress, although it's not perfect. Now we have like, I think more than 20%, it's not enough, 20% of women in parliament. But now what is happening, as you mentioned that law, it's really interesting because, you don't know, Amber, that, but we have here in our like political arena something that we called žetoni, like tokens, maybe to talk it in crypto language, but not like a really good utility of tokens. So, these guys often switch parties and whatever, and then the substitute come into parliament, and these substitutes are often women because they were on the lower part of the list. And now we have, because of this tokens, we have like 30% or something like that of women in parliament. So to answer your question, it's not the perfect model, like the quotas and everything, and in a business, it's something that it's really hard and difficult question, but I think it makes some progress because some quotas were in Scandinavia, in Germany, in France, and now they have like 30% of women in management board. And as you said, Amber, it's good for business. I mean, this is important. So I'm also pro this. Also, I wasn't sure before, but now I am.
Danijela, would you change the law? Do you think there's more affirmative action needed, or this is good enough, or too much?
Well, actually, affirmative action, I think, is now happening in the EU in general, not just in terms of diversity and inclusion, but also with green policies. And I think everybody in the meantime has heard of the acronym ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So there is actually action being taken. One of it is, I was checking a little bit before this panel, there is a Women on Board directive, which was passed in the EU for listed companies, so not for all companies, but large listed corporations. And every EU country will need to implement this directive into national legislation, which means that there will be a percentage, a ratio of women which will need to be on boards of listed companies. So that's a huge change. I heard that it's already causing some problems within corporations with all male management boards. Who will step out, and which woman will come in on his place, or will they enlarge the boards, or what to do? The second is the whole regulation around ESG. Which is maybe a bit more soft policy in some way, but I think more and more we will see that diversity and inclusion, of course, in terms of gender equality, but also other types of inclusion and diversity, will be important for marketing, for advertising, for obtaining better financing on better terms. I mean, the banks are already collecting and preparing a joint questionnaire for companies trying to obtain financing, where they will ask questions about environmental issues and policies in the companies trying to get a loan, but also about diversity and so on. In law firms, now when we apply for various legal rankings of law firms, we now have new columns on diversity. How many female lawyers do you have? How many female partners do you have? Then we are happy, we write 100%. So this is already happening. And as you, at first, I was a bit. I doubted it because I was skeptical because I thought, it's not so democratic. How can you impose something like this? But as you said, without it, nothing will really change. Paradigm shift takes ages and takes many generations, and this is something that we can do now.
Hajdi, affirmative action, yes, no? More of it, less of it?
Well, similar to the ladies here. It is a little bit of a maybe love-hate relationship because, it's difficult to impose something because it can also backfire in many instances when, for example, women gets a certain position, then she's questioned whether she was really the person for that position or she got it just because there was a quota or something. But yeah, unfortunately, I do see it as a short-term action that kind of needs to be a little bit of a kick in the butt, so to say, so that we can really start consciously thinking about the necessity of more inclusion and more diversity, because, yeah, otherwise it would take who knows how much longer for the change to actually happen. I mean, we do see a little bit of a change, what you mentioned with ESG and everything. The new generations are thinking more about it. They're choosing brands who are really more green, more environmental, more really focusing on diversity as well. But it's too slow of a change if we would let it to happen on its own, I think. So yeah, not the biggest fan, but I really do understand the necessity of really having the push.
Thanks. I got some really fantastic questions from the audience. Last question from me. Let's try to do this quick one, but I think it's really important. So for the tech leaders in the audience, both male and female, as they exit this fabulous building, what would be one thing that you would propose them, to do to start fostering diversity in their companies? Amber, let's start with you.
Be conscious that you are unconsciously biased. Every decision you make, ask yourself, if it was, some role model, feminine role model you have, or would you have made the same decision? And if you are a father, and that one is really easy, if you are a father, always imagine that the woman in front of you is your daughter, and then you will see how you will change the perspective immediately.
Oh, that is so true. the moment when most men really start thinking about the role of women in the world is when they get daughters. That is absolutely amazing to see that shift and that change. But yeah, I was thinking along the same way, like really be conscious, like put the conscious effort into the actions, into really making sure that when you have a team or when you hire, when you promote, that you pick the person because of their skills, not because of the gender. Like really, let's have gender balanced leadership and let's make the knowledge skills the thing that matters because, but that's the thing for both women and men. Let's again not forget that we women also have unconscious biases, as you said. So we really have to start with ourselves, like really try to recognize our own unconscious biases, and then be able to, in the companies, create a culture of constructive dialogue. It's like a safe environment where you can actually say if there is something wrong, but without any side feeling attacked and then defensive. You have to be able to talk about the problems and then find the way how to solve them and how to improve the diversity and inclusion. So I'm always for the positive approach and set examples and find examples of how it really made an impact in your in other companies. So that's why you want to implement it in yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm third now on a roll, so you said mostly everything. Maybe just one topic that I want to add, it's this famous pay gap. I was before working in IT business, like in managerial role. It was not a big company, but semi-big. And actually, women almost never asked me for better pay. And while the guys were asking almost every day, even if they they bought a new apartment and they need a new kitchen, and he just say, "Listen, I have this cost that I was not prepared to, like a new whatever car. So I think I worth this and this," and a woman would literally never ask for a better pay. They are in a company till they are not satisfied. So and then they switch the company. So maybe as a tip for everyone in the audience to make this environment more open, maybe to even publicly say about the pay. And to make this, let's say, open environment to everyone, not only women, but also to other minorities. Because, and I always emphasize this, as we mentioned many times before on this round table, because it's good for business, not only because you're a good person, you should be good people, but it's also good for business, so think.
Well, you said everything, and I think we need time for the questions, right? So I have something else to say, but I will just agree with my colleagues, and you can ask the questions.
Yeah, we could do this all day. We should probably do a conference on this, and some really interesting conferences are done on this. Unfortunately, we got some fabulous questions. We do not have time for all of them, so just let's do this one. Which I find probably the most interesting. So how does invisible labor at home, childcare, etc., impact women's decision to start their own companies, and what can we do about it? Maybe Amber, you had the most experience with founders.
Well, actually, you would be surprised. With the advent of internet and e-commerce, a lot of women, as you said, do labor at home that is unpaid for. And to be honest, I'm of the opinion that the government really need to pay mothers for being mothers, because it's an extra job. And it's an extra mental job, because mothers at the office think about the food that they need to make in the evening. They think about the kid, while the husband, trust me, he doesn't think about that. So this extra hassle needs to be paid for. But as I was saying, we have seen with the advent of e-commerce, actually more and more women opening small businesses, whether in like art or, in Etsy, for example. Etsy is mainly women doing artisanat, right? So yeah, I'm not very For me, it's, yeah, that's how it's working. But what I want to see is more women opening bigger businesses. And this is why, again, there should be, I'm of the opinion that the government needs to give paternity leave and maternity leave, because whatever we say, when you take maternity leave, you're decreasing you're decreasing the probability of getting promoted. But if the men and the women are forced to go, then the chances are equal.
Fantastic point. Hajdi, unpaid home labor should be subsidized by the government or not? Yes or no?
Should it be subsidized?
That was Amber's point, right?
I mean, it should be definitely valued, and yeah, probably should be paid more than it is now. But yeah, that would probably change the moment, as you said, fathers would go on a paternity leave. They would probably demand to be paid. So yeah.
Hard
yes,
one, I know, for the end.
Okay, let's say yes, but in a way that we need to get men more involved into raising children. So that way, that would level the playing ground, so to say, because not only will they be more involved with the families, of course, but also would give more opportunities to women to be able to do the work even though they had the baby. So men give support to women.
Carla, just a quick one. So unpaid home labor, support by government, yes, no?
Can I be totally honest? I mean...
Please.
I have cats. I really don't know. No, I'm just. I don't know. I'm not a parent. You know, I'm totally pro men involving with kids, but it's not a topic that I'm really interesting to. But yeah, I mean, everything that can help women in this environment, I'm pro. But really. I'm not a parent, so I wasn't thinking about it.
Sure. Danijela, your opinion on this one?
I'm not sure if I understood it well. Is it paid during maternity and parental leave?
No, the idea is...
Because we already have that. I mean, it's just a question of numbers. So I'm definitely pro, yes.
Okay, so we are way out of time. Thank you for a really engaging panel. Thank you for opening some really important questions. And thank you for opening the Web3 Tales, first ever Web3 Tales conference. Thank you, guys.